I have the copies for chapters 3 and 4 here. Let's pass them out. So, okay. Hello.
Hey, how
see
are
you.
you?
Nice.
Different one, next chapter.
Most of you were here last week, but not everyone. It shouldn't take as well. We'll see. Getting a late start, but it shouldn't take as long this week because it's. I don't have to give you repeat all the background information about the Song of Songs. By the way, did anyone have any questions based on last week or and your reflections since or comments?
Well, I'll make a comment. In the beginning, when she says that she's dark, and she's really not that dark, she's only dark because of the sun. That's what all Puerto Rican women say. Yeah, because Puerto Ricans like they don't want to be like too black, too dark.
Yes.
They say, "Oh, I'm just sunburned."
I know it's part of that social prejudice. I mean, it's too bad.
Yeah.
It's too bad. Black and beautiful.
Did you say that Thomas Aquinas had this read to him on his deathbed?
No, John of the Cross.
John of the Cross.
Yeah.
I didn't get that wrong.
John of the Cross had it read to him on his deathbed, the Song of
I
Songs.
think Thomas Aquinas may have done too, so maybe it's a favourite.
I did hear something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was in the biography of him. I'll check it.
By maybe
So John of the Cross and
well,
possibly.
good. Maybe you can research that.
So what did he do?
On the deathbed, had the Song of Songs read to him.
Oh, read to him.
Today is the Feast of St. Lucy, which is the Feast of Light, and then, by the way, tomorrow, even though we won't be celebrating it since it's Advent, the Sunday of Advent, is the Feast of John of the Cross. So tomorrow is the Feast of St. John of the Cross, so it's a good time also to be doing this. Anyone else before we begin? Okay. So we're on chapter 3. So, on my bed in the nights, in other words, habitually really, but I sought the one whom my soul loves. I sought him and did not find him. And of course, the mystics are always pointing out, that we have this longing for God and we're searching for God, but we don't always seem to find him. And St. Teresa of Jesus, for example, speaks a lot about this longing. Even to die, she says, I die because I don't die. I really want to rejoin my beloved. So this all this sense of not always being aware of finding God. Of course, God is always there, but it's more the obstruction is more in us. But either way, it seems as though we haven't found him. So she says, I will rise and I will go around the city. Jerusalem probably, but when you talk about going around the city, what we're saying is not just going around in our circle, in New York or Detroit or whatever, but in my own city. That's that level of interpretation where it applies to the individual. So the city is you, your own heart, your own faculties. So you're going around your own being, looking for the streets. So it says the narrow streets, the souk, souk, I think it's still a word in Arabic, and the squares. In other words, the narrow places and the broad places. All the different parts of our being. I sought the one whom my soul loves. I sought him and did not find him. Now notice again, you get these repeat verses, that are like, little formulae, which come up occasionally. That's the way poetry often works. It's certainly true of Homer, where you have narrative traditions coming together and the verses are repeated, formula verses. Then it says, the watchman found me. Those who were going about the city. Some of the mystics, I think Gregory of Nyssa, for example, interpret this as the angels that you encounter on their way, because they're keeping watch over your city, like guardian angels. They found you as you're going around, so you encounter them. but you're not so interested in that. It's like Mary Magdalene at the grave who met an angel too, and she said, no, I'm not interested in you. Where's the guy that was here before? So they went about the city, and so she asked them, the one whom my soul loves, have you seen? Have you seen him? Now, scarcely had I passed them by that I found the one whom my soul loves. I held him, grasped him, and would not let him go, until I had made him come, brought him into the house of my mother, into the one, to the hall of the room of the one who bore me. Now, some commentators interpreting that, as Eve, my human nature, the room of the one who bore me is Eve. So I discover you in my humanity, but yet still unreformed. You're the one that's going to transform my humanity. So it's speaking about his own humanity, the one he inherited from Adam and Eve here. Or I brought him into my mother's house. It could be taken as the church. The church is my mother. On a more allegorical plane rather than individual topological plane. And then talk about formulae. Notice that we have a repeat here of this verse we had last time, word for word. I adjure you, daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelles and hinds of the field. Now, I remember I told you that in the Greek that's like the powers and dominions, the powers and virtues. And I noticed in the Revised English Bible they had by the spirits and goddesses of the field. Wow, okay. So that's a very animistic kind of way of taking it. But really it's just remember it was the resemblance of those words, gazelles and hinds, to Sabaoth, hosts and powers that made the Greek translate it that way. Okay. All right, I adjure you that you not arouse, that you not awake love, not just my beloved, but love itself. You not awaken love until it is ready, until it desires. So we talked about that last time, that love has to have its moment, it has to be at the right time.
Well, how do you know?
You learn by experience, don't you? So we'll see.
I also think that word watchman, it's horrible. You said that it could be angels. I mean, angels is lovely, but to translate watchman for angels, that's really gross.
The angels keep
I wouldn't call it gross. I'd call it maybe far-fetched in some views. But remember, we're talking about archetypes and allegories here, and that's the way it was taken.
But don't the angels keep watch, or that's the shepherds?
Yeah, sure.
Angels.
I have a
So,
question.
yes.
Some of the commentators have talked about the first part as being an attempt to control the loved one.
Also, yeah.
And so the angels then would be a check on
Mhm.
your going off.
Well, whatever, it's just interesting. Whatever spirit it is, they're obviously interacting here and checking out on each other. So you could maybe say that. It's interesting. Yeah. Remember, there's no one sole correct way of reading this, as you obviously see by now. It's very rich, especially as being archetypal.
But when you say to control the loved one, to control the man or the woman, because they're both loved ones.
Yeah, well, you seem to be saying they're trying maybe to control each other, or she's trying to control him. Yeah.
Yes, and if the loved one is
Not ready
an
to-
archetype of God,
Yes.
it's our attempt to have God do what we want
Right.
rather than fitting into His plan.
So that's interesting. Yeah. Whether
Okay.
that's the point of this, but you can certainly develop that point, which is true and it's enough in itself. That's interesting. Yes. So this is the chant, the Gregorian chant, which is from the Canon of the Virgin Mary, for the next verse. Which is verse 6. Que est isto, que ascendi per desertum, sicut virgula fumi ex aromatimos mira et
So
what is that verse then?
Is that Solomon's wedding procession what you just did? Or is it Solomon's wedding procession?
It's number 6, verse 6, which says, "Who?" So it's not a procession. Who is this feminine? It's feminine. Who is this feminine that's coming up from the desert, like a pillar, a column of smoke, smoke, mist, incense? It's kind of all mixed in the Hebrew there. Fragrant with myrrh and frankincense. Libana, like the word Lebanon is a word for frankincense in Hebrew. Interesting. And with more than and on all the spices, or more than all the spices, really, of the merchant, the one who sells the spice merchant. So lots of spices are going to be coming up here now, even more so in the next verses than we saw last week. It was interesting for me when I first gave this lecture back at St. Joseph's. I actually had vials and stuff of the various things you could smell. And having worked on the Chartreuse liqueur, we had bins and bins of exotic spices. Some of this stuff is very familiar to me, so I'll explain them some of them as we go along. But myrrh is actually more. Actually, pretty much the same word in Hebrew, pretty much all the languages. Okay. So who is it? So that's the bride. All right. That's the bride who's coming up like a column of smoke. And this was very much taken applied to the Blessed Mother in the liturgy. She is the one who's coming up from the desert of our dried up humanity. She's the one that's coming forth like fragrant incense to meet the beloved. Okay, now this gets a little more complicated here, especially in a couple of verses. But behold, what is it? Splendors the bed, the litter. Well, yeah. So we're not quite sure. Is it a litter that we're talking about here, or a throne? Anyway,
litter is something like a bed.
Yeah, palanquin is one of the ways it's translated. It's state litter, litter of Solomon. Yeah, okay. So it's 60 of the bravest of surrounded his bed, 80 warriors, the best of the Gibore, which is the champions and warriors of Israel. Now again, this is sometimes taken to mean angelic protection around. Here we're talking about King Solomon, God, Christ, the divine beloved. All of them holding their sword and all of them skilled in war. So St. Michael and swords and all of that stuff. Each of them with their sword at their thigh. Against the terror, the dread of the night. So there you go. Trials, the darkness of various kinds, spiritually speaking, psychologically speaking, the terrors of the night. So there, once again, you have the sense of divine protection. The bed of Solomon might actually be, well, again, take the bride herself. The church is the seat of wisdom, as we pray to Mary. So that can still be applied to the bride. Then we're talking about an apirion is a word that doesn't come up elsewhere, and that's what's translated here as a pavilion. What are the various ways it's translated? It's hapax. Hapax means that it only appears once in the whole Bible, so we can't compare it with anything else, and we don't know exactly what it means. And it's generally taken to be, as you see, palanquin, a carriage, that's interesting, a palanquin. And that's the way the Latin and the Greek take it too. They make a very good case here, considering the way it goes on to be described, that it's actually not movable. It's actually talking about a stable room. If it's a pavilion, it's one that's actually built stable and not to be moved. So it's an image of the church, image of the bride, image as you go on to see. From the cedars of Lebanon, which is interesting because that's, again, wherever you have cedar, you have a sense not only of fragrance, but of stability, and things built of cedar don't decay, so they last. And its pillars are made of silver, its cushions of gold. And they sometimes comment on the difference between different levels of gold. Gold would be charity, silver would be faith, things like that. They speak about the virtues and the qualities of it. And then the couches of purple. That's kind of like a violet dye, a violet purple. One of the four colors you think that we speak of in the four levels. I'm very familiar with the four levels in the Book of Exodus. The different colors, linen and dyes. That would be the purple one, and so it's very much that a reddish purple. What does it say for couches here? Seat of purple. Seat of purple. Seat. Yeah. Okay. It's a shensum in Latin, which means something you get up on. So it is kind of like a chair which you climb up on. It's actually Merkaba in Hebrew, which actually also means a chariot. Merkaba mysticism is chariot mysticism. So again, something you climb up onto, but probably not a chariot itself, but simply something you can sit on. So you have to climb up and sit on it. And again, where the Lord would sit, thrones and dominations. It's the angels are where the Lord sits. So again, that same idea. And within, it's paved, or again, that seems to be something stable. It's paved or built with love. It even looks like it says love itself is paved with love. Love is one that paves it. It was paved with love. By the daughters of Jerusalem. Again, so inlaid or something like that. Interior, inlaid with love is what it says there. And it doesn't even say daughters of Jerusalem as having done that in that first translation, New Standard Revised Version. Leather. That's interesting. Somebody took leather instead of love. They didn't want. I don't see how they got that. But laid with inlaid with ivory. Okay, they're trying to figure out what that is. Ebony. Okay. But they're probably getting that from the paved part. But the word is love is definitely there. Which of course is the key to the mystical life. Let's see. So the actual word for it that says paved, they point out it means to join stones and to inlay. So inlay with something. Mosaic pavement, porphyry, marble, mother of pearl, or colored stones, for example. You would use that word. That's what that is. Now this next verse is really interesting. This verse is used in the Carthusian liturgy as the entrance antiphon for the Feast of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And it says, "Come out, daughters of Zion, to look upon Solomon, King Solomon. See the crown with which his mother crowned him on the day of his wedding." Is the mother God here, or is it Mary, or is it the church? Gender is a little fluid here. When God is the mother as well. on the day of his wedding, which was the day of his, when does he wed the church? The incarnation, the passion, the resurrection. In the case, it's the love of the Sacred Heart. On the day of his wedding, on the day of the joy of his heart, which is a lovely, lovely phrase. Day of his heart's great joy. Okay, that's chapter 3. Any comments or questions from that? Sometimes the descriptions are hard to get because of not only the grammar, but some of the words are rare, and it's hard to know exactly what they mean.
So you're saying that the inlaid with love is the correct translation?
Yeah, that seems to be more direct. Yeah, inlaid
so
with
leather
love.
and
So
ivory
literally what it says, and that's why, as I say, the grammar is part of the problem because it's very free grammatically. Literally what it says is, within inlaid love. There's no preposition with the love. So what is it an agent? Is it the means of, is this what it's paved with? Or is it the attitude of the pavers? Or, what is it exactly? Or is it the pavement, itself? So it's not quite sure. That's all it has. Within, inlaid, love. So, right.
That sounds very poetic, actually.
Yeah, you're right. And when you leave out words, it can become more evocative and more poetic. So the next verse, chapter 1. So I'll just sing this one too, this is to begin chapter 4. This is actually from the Comment of a Virgin. So this is not even Mary, it's just any female, any virgin saint. And it's the next verse, chapter 1. Verse 1 of chapter 4. Quam pulchra es amica mea, quam pulchra es et decora, o prolituri columbarum, absqueo, quod intrinsecus later. Now this verse has a really interesting history. Well, let's look at it first. So, behold you, beautiful, my love. All right, my befriend. Ragazzi is a word that comes up again and again here. It's translated amica, friend in Latin as well. It means a companion, all right, in Hebrew. And so that you'll even see that he sometimes even refers to as my sister. It'll come up later, even though that's obviously not literally true. It reminds me of the fact that in the Greek version, when referring to the bridegroom, they used adelphidos, which actually means nephew, which really is confusing. Because I've seen some of the English translations. In fact, the one English translation I saw years ago of Origen's commentary on the Song of Songs kept referring to the nephew. Well, it was driving me nuts because it's clearly not that kind of a relationship. It's a lover relationship. But that's literally, one of the main meanings of the word that's actually used in the Greek version. But as I say, it does refer to her here as sister, my friend, and my companion, not always just as my lover or anything like that. So it is a little confusing. It's a way of expressing intimacy in the Hebrew, in various ways. There's nothing incestuous about it.
I was going to say, why do you think the idea of nephew came into it at all?
I really don't know. I think, if anything, if I were to guess, I would say they were trying to avoid, making it too erotic.
Oh, okay.
So it's like a euphemism.
Yeah, right. I'd have to do a little more research on the word itself to see, if it has any secondary meanings or exactly why it happened that way. I didn't know why it was there until I looked at the Greek, and then I saw, oh, that's where they're getting it. But and of course, that's what Origen was reading. He was reading the Greek, basing it on that. So,
But it's interesting because my friend Mon Ami, it's very much used in French for lovers.
right, yeah, my friend, yes, exactly, yeah. Mon ami, yeah, exactly. In French, if you have say mon ami, female,
It's lovers.
it means lover, yeah. So it's a euphemism again, a different way of saying it. It's actually more than is being said by the word itself. So that's a good point. Then it says your eyes are doves. Again, in Latin, I pointed this out last time. It says your eyes are dove's eyes. It's dove's eyes, but actually it just says your eyes are doves. They look like it. It was the white of the eye. Remember we said last time, or the oval shape, or the gentleness of the eye, whatever it is. And then this part. This is the weirdest part. It says from within your somatic. I know we don't know what that means. We don't know what that word is. It means says radically different interpretations for this enigmatic word have been in circulation. Veil or locks and tresses. Just about all versions, including the Latin, including the Greek, etc., they have your veil. So from behind your veil, your eyes are looking out from behind your veil, which makes sense. But they have 2 full pages, no, 2.5 full pages of commentary on making the case for that. It really refers to the thicket of the hair itself. So it's your eyes looking out from behind the thicket of your hair, or out, just alongside it. So it's not your veil, it's your hair.
So it means that she had curly hair.
Well, or like you, right here. You have the hair right alongside your eyes there. So your eyes are like looking out from the thicket of your hair. It's a good example. So right, maybe down the front of the tape. So that's what this translation has: the doves of your eyes looking out from the thicket of your hair. And if you look at the versions here, they all say the veil, right? They all say behind your veil.
But
Which-
Father, we're talking here as Westerners about something that's ancient and Eastern, and weren't the women always veiled, pretty much?
Well, exactly not. I mean,
Well,
that's
they were not.
well, no. I mean,
Okay.
as far as I can understand, because that was more of a Muslim custom.
Oh,
In later centuries. I'm sure that veils were worn, but not as a matter of habit. I don't think all the time with women.
I guess we're in the habit of thinking that
Yes.
because, like the Stations of the Cross,
Right, you always see that.
you always see Mary veiled, and you see Mary Magdalene with her hair flowing freely, so you kind of see that difference.
Yeah, and certainly in ancient culture, having your hair, I don't know whether this applied to the Hebrews at the time, but ancient classical culture, having your hair down meant you were a loose woman, and if you had the veil, it meant you were married or something. So, I mean, there's that as well. But I'm not quite sure how it applies
Wouldn't
here.
they call the hair itself a veil as a covering?
Generally not,
No.
but I mean, it is interesting if the word itself could mean either one, so there is a
Well, didn't it
correspondence
say
there.
something in the New Testament about a woman should have her hair?
Covered.
St. Paul.
In addition to the hair, it's not enough. She has to have also a veil or a covering on her head. That's what St. Paul
The
says.
maidens had their hair loose. It was the married women who.
Yeah, that's right. So it was a sign that you were married if you had the veil on and you weren't available. Available.
The young girls had their hair long.
All right. I can't keep it too long, otherwise they think they were loose women.
Go ahead.
If you're following through from the marriage in the previous verse, then it could even be a wedding veil.
Yeah, right. I don't think it does carry through though, but that's an interesting point. Yeah. I think it's a fresh chapter. They're always cautioning about seeing connections between verses that are, because they're kind of independent, which is one of the reasons people thought there might have been multiple authors or bring it all together from different sources. As from behind the Theopesis, which means silence. But I think that probably meant a veil, because it was taken that way. So the word actually comes from a word meaning silence, the veil. And the Greek, because the Latin didn't pick up on that. But what the Latin does have, and therefore which all the Latin commentators, like Bernard, have, which is, and which I just sang, absque eo quod intrinsicus late. It says, from behind your veil, it means apart from that which is hidden within. Absque eo quod intrinsicus, what's intrinsic? Intrinsicus late, which is hidden within. So they go wild over this verse. Wow, your eyes, but behind there's something deeply hidden within, and it's wow, it's something. So they were going all mystical on that verse, which is not really in the Hebrew at all. But so there's not a sense of outer and inner here, other than looking out from the thicket of the hair. Inner and outer isn't really.
Sounds like lines from Petra. About Laura.
Well, you know about that. Speaking of hair, which is interesting, maybe that's already an argument for taking that as the thicket of the hair, because it immediately goes to talk about the hair in the rest of verse 1 there. And talking about the cultural element, I mentioned this last time. People read the song today and you hear, can you imagine going into a restaurant today with your date and saying to her, "Oh, your hair is like a flock of goats."
That would be the end of that.
Last day, yeah.
But when we were in Turkey, we had some beautiful young women with us in the group, and we went to the market, and all of the guys lined up and said, 4 camels for her, and 10 camels for so-and-so, and they were offering camels.
But they weren't comparing the girls to camels.
No.
They were buying
They were.
Yeah, I understand. But
It was like money that they were going to get camels to get them.
yeah, well, here they're actually talking about the hair being like goats. So
Goat's hair is really rough and wiry.
well, it's not. No, it's not saying that her hair is goat's hair. It's saying that the hair is like goats. Well, you see, goats literally like bounding down. Actually, the word is.
Visual. The visual idea.
The word is almost like flowing down. It says like they're flowing down Gilead. So it's like streaming hair, flowing hair. It's like flocks flowing down
I've
a
seen
mountainside.
goats running down the mountain.
So your hair is like a flock of
Where?
goats.
Antigua.
Oh.
Goats were running down.
Oh, yeah, they guys was little.
Flowing down the mountains of Gilead here, which again is evocative. The next verse too is actually kind of humorous, and we're not quite sure exactly how to translate it all. But it says, "Your teeth are like a flock of ewes," So
Sheep.
fleek. So you have all these, the white, a flock of sheep. That's interesting. The teeth are there, and it says. Coming up from the washing. So again, it's as if they used Crest white strips. Coming in, they've just been washed. That's another interesting way of pointing out the whiteness of the teeth.
There was maybe like a class item also. That if you have good teeth.
Well, of course, same with it goes all the way up to modern times. People's teeth fell out by the time they were 30, and so you judged a beautiful young woman who's 15 and still has her teeth, and it says again, that's what this says here. All of them are either. It comes from a word for double or twin here, so they're all of them twins. Another way of saying that they're all. They're paired. They're paired. So the upper and the bottom, the upper and the lower, they all have twins. All right. Just like ewes who have just given birth to twins. This is the imagery here. And another way, and all of them, let's see, of them all, none is missing.
None is barren.
None is barren, but all it means is there is none to them. There's no, that's right, no barren one. Another way of saying there's not a tooth missing.
Right. Good genes.
So all of those things that they're paired, they have twins, not one of them is missing, they come up from the washing, all saying basically she has a full set of teeth. Shiny teeth,
Lovely ways.
And the fathers go into how, if that applies to the church, the teeth of the mystical body are the ones that chew on doctrine, the theologians, not one of them is missing, and they're all,
God.
Right. If you applied it to the individual, then your meditation skills, chewing on doctrine, or on so you can apply all that.
And it's Gilead. Sorry. Is that
Yeah. So.
Did you mention last week?
Yeah, well, that doesn't apply. It doesn't. It's the only time it appears here, but it's just one of the fertile regions. I believe in northern Israel. I have to check that out. And then there's also famous verse about like a ribbon, a crimson ribbon are your lips. So, vita cocinia in Latin, like a band, like a hairband, a string. So a broad string of scarlet are your lips. That's lovely, and your eloquium in Latin, your words, some translate it your mouth, but it's more your voice or your words is lovely. Okay. And crimson always takes, it's not a symbol for the blood of Christ, it's a symbol of love, charity. So you have, if your lips are red, then it's a sign you have the love of Christ. It also, I think some commentators point out, it can refer to it. It's reminiscent of the red string that what's her name?
Madonna.
No, in Jericho.
Tina?
Why can't I remember the name? Rahab hung in the window. The red string to alert the spies who were going to come in and sneak into Jericho before it was destroyed. So again, apart from the song, they interpreted that as the love of God or the love of neighbor.
Rahab was the harlot, right?
Yeah.
Is that where they got the red lights from, in the red light district?
Well, that's a good question.
Could be.
It's a good question. Probably not directly, but I don't know. So that's has evocative associations here. And then the half, or the side of your like a half of a pomegranate, rimon, is your cheek or temple or forehead. So some of the curved part of the face.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's like a half of a pomegranate. And again, that same phrase that we just had a moment ago, word for word, from behind your veil or from the thicket of your hair, which also again makes sense either way. Yeah. So you're comparing the loveliness, the lovely angle, the lovely sweep of the jaw or of the cheek. Yeah. And then what are
Rosy cheeks too, pomegranate.
pomegranate? Yes, rosy cheeks. Yeah. Very good. It's a rimon in pomegranate in Hebrew. Now this should be, those of you who like the Litany of Mary, the Litany of Loretto, will recognize this right away. It says, like a tower of David is your neck. She's called the Tower of David.
Well, what is the Tower of David?
That's a good question. What is a Tower of David? Is there a Tower of David? I don't
There
think
is
so.
in Israel, in Jerusalem, one of the.
Is it?
But I think that was built much later.
Yeah.
It's not from this time.
Okay, maybe they built it in order to,
Yeah.
in response to this.
Maybe.
Migdal is tower, and Migdalia is actually a name in Hispanic name, Migdalia. But it comes from this word here, meaning a tower or strong. Tower of David is your neck, all right. Built with, again, talpiot. We're not quite sure what that means. It's one of those rare words. I'll just check on that. Tower of David. It's a hapax. It only appears here. It's the only time the word appears in the whole Bible, so we're not sure exactly what it means. Built in courses or terraces, or what are the translations we have here in verse 4? It's the second page. Your neck built in courses. That's what we just said. With encircling courses. Okay, with battlements. That's a good translation. Kurt, with battlements, built in layers. Okay. Now, 1,000 bucklers are hanging on it, on all the shields of the warriors. So once again, we saw that earlier in chapter 3:7, describing the litter with the warriors around it. Here's the same idea. The neck is the Tower of David. Remember, Mary, in some writers, is the neck of the mystical body, between the head and the body. She's the one who is the mediatrix of graces, so they compare her to the neck, so that's one way of interpreting it here. But whatever connects, from Christ to us. Is the Tower of David, and again, 1,000 bucklers, the shields of the warriors. Again, either virtues themselves or angelic virtues surrounding and guarding it. Okay, in verse 5, your two breasts are two fawns of a gazelle, twins, of course, just like twins of the gazelle grazing among the lilies. Now, to give you a sense of how the fathers of the church would talk about two breasts, they say love of God and love of neighbor.
Oh, how silly.
You have something better to do than thou love of God and love of neighbor?
Well, at least it's embodied, you're speaking about it.
That's right, yes, right.
Embodied.
It's not suppression.
It's repression. Repression, but it's not suppression. Yes, right.
Those darn women.
Stay away.
So, and here's another phrase that we saw already: before the day breathes and the shadows flee. And remember we talked about that. Is that referring to the evening with the shadows lengthening, or the day and the cool of the day, or is it referring to dawn when the shadows flee, literally disappear as the sun rises, and the day breathes with the dawn breeze? And so it's more likely the second, more likely dawn. I will hie me, I will hurry me. That's one ancient, older English translation. I will hie me, because it's elek li. I will walk to myself. This is literally the idiom in Hebrew. So I will hurry to the mountain of myrrh. So obviously that's mortification. Myrrh is a symbol of death. Myrrh is a symbol of mortification. So it meant I'm going to purify myself ascetically. A mountain of myrrh, and then the hill of frankincense. Notice we have myrrh and frankincense, and we just had gold a few verses earlier. Gold, frankincense, and myrrh. But hill of frankincense is taken as the scent of the divine, and offering worship to the divine.
But those two spices are also very medicinal.
Yes, that's right.
I have a little jar for certain conditions. Which is a mixture
Certain
of
conditions.
No, yeah, for nerve things. Like when you get tingles in your ankles and stuff. I have a little.
I'm sure there's much ancient wisdom there. So then the seventh verse is so you are all beautiful. So literally all of you is beautiful. My companion, and there is no spot in you. Tota pulchra Maria et macula non est in te. That verse, amica mea there also, I should have said. That verse is the verse we sang in the monastery for years at the end of the night office. It's a little antiphon to Mary. You are all beautiful, my friend, and there is no spot in you. Tota pulchra es amica mea et macula non est in te. No macula, no immaculate, So that verse, it was applied to Mary and was actually sung in our liturgy at the end of the office every day to Mary. So you're all beautiful, my love, and there is no spot in you.
What a nice lover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's pretty good, right? Giving all these compliments.
Yeah.
Remember, that's the way God treats us too.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus is not there just, or even primarily pointing out our faults. He's busy saying how beautiful we are. Very encouraging. Very encouraging. How beautiful we are. Do we believe it? Do we believe it? Okay, this next one is also I won't sing it, but it's a responsory in the office. This verse 8. With me from Lebanon, my perfect one, or my bride, I should say, my bride, Kala. With me, so it's come down, literally come with me, but literally just says with me. With me from Lebanon, come. look down from the peak of Amanna, from the head of the mountain, the peak of Sanir and Hermon. All right, there are allegorical interpretations of these various things, escaping from various vices, etc. But in terms of literal sense, these are all, it points out, mountains up in the north of Israel, which are kind of romanticized, on the edge of the land there. But it has had generally a negative interpretation, at least in Christian interpretation. Look at the next part, from the mountains of leopards and from the lions' dens. Well, of course, that's taken more negatively as demonic forces that we are escaping from, coming down from there, escaping from there. You've ravished my heart. Now here's where she uses the word sister. My sister, my bride. My sister, my bride. You've ravished me with one of your eyes. Now, that's what it is literally. One of your eyes? Well, they take that to mean one glance of your eyes, which is probably better than saying, I like this eye. Or even just one of your eyes ravishes me. And of course, obviously, when you can deal with, do we have clear sight, clear vision? Are our eyes illumined? Are we awake? Are we enlightened so that we can ravish the Lord with our glance? That's a good mystical way of looking at it. They point out that libavtini is one word which means you have hearted me. Like you say, I've gutted you. You actually use the word as a verb. I've hearted you means you've ravished my heart. You've hearted me means you've ravished my heart, like you've gutted me, something like that.
I wonder if the use of sister could be interpreted as a sign of equality.
Well, yes, a sign of intimacy and a sign of equality is good. Yeah. But it is striking. So you've ravished me with one glance of your eyes, and then this next thing, with one link of your, and it has to do with neck, so it's probably necklace.
Yeah, here it says one bead.
One bead, okay, one bead of your necklace. This has had a problematic history because it was taken to mean with one hair of your neck. One crine coli tui in the Latin. So one little hair of your neck ravished me, like wow, almost like fetish. But that's where they got it. They interpreted it that way, as instead of the link of the necklace as a hair on the neck. And even St. John of the Cross took it that way, and has some commentary on that about the unicity of intention or something. I forget exactly what, but that's the way it came across in the Latin.
Well, maybe it comes from
one hair of your neck.
The scripture about that God knows every hair.
Yeah, well, that's in other words, even one single hair is sufficient to ravish me. I mean, it does make some sense. It's just a little odd, and that's in fact not what it says in the Hebrew. So that's the way it came down in the Latin, in the Western Church. It's referring to that.
So nothing is what it seems.
Amen. All right. So, and here to get back to your point, Frank, where this next verse also in the Latin and the Greek has your breast, but actually it means your lovemaking. The same word dodeka, dodaim, which means your loves, your lovemaking. How lovely is your loving? In other words, my sister, my bride. How good is your lovemaking more than wine? It's better than wine. Your kisses and embraces, and the fragrance of your oils more than all spices. Okay. So that's very erotic and evocative.
These people were really keen on wine, eh?
Aren't you?
Yeah. But I mean, to compare love to wine, I mean, it's not comparable. I mean, love is love.
Yeah, they're both intoxicating.
Very good. Yeah, but
That's
Melet lax sub lingua tua, in order vestimentorum tuum sub odor curis is the next verb. So honey and milk are under your tongue. And again, that's just taken, you know, honey and milk, land of milk and honey, milk, honey, taken as symbolic of well, especially the early spiritual life. Milk and honey, different levels of spiritual understanding and of virtue. So honey and milk are under your tongue, but the first part says like your lips are like honeycomb, you know, kind of like dripping honey. And then under your tongue are honey and milk, and the scent of your clothes like the scent of Lebanon.
Oh,
Which
that's
is like
nice. French kissing.
It's like, well, now,
Totally sensual.
It's much more beautiful than 50 Shades of Grey.
Yes, yes.
A million times
Yes.
more lovely language than that
Well,
piece of.
well, they're
I
mainly,
haven't read
They're
that.
mainly-
Is it worth reading?
I
Let's-
read
let's not
3
get involved with that, but-
pages and it went in the trash.
well, it's dealing more with S&M, as I understand, so.
But I like
No,
the
writing,
Marquis de Sade.
the language and the writing is.
How
Don't, who has read it?
I read 3 pages.
Okay, so
I
you
read
can't,
one
you
sentence
can't
and
talk about
It's
it.
just bad writing.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen the movie yet, so.
It's very bad writing.
Because how does it compare to Sade? I mean, Sade is wonderful. The Marquis de Sade.
Oh.
No.
I mean, he's a good writer.
The opinions expressed here are not necessarily the opinions of the teacher. But they're all valuable.
I wrote it in a church.
I was just about to remind people.
I'm sure it didn't last very long there. The poem's only, you know, grabbed it. I couldn't believe it. It's great. I said, oh, this is terrible.
Oh, it was concluded. So the next verse is also a very important one in the Marian liturgy, in the office of Mary. An enclosed garden is my sister, my bride. And then there's usually taken to be a repetition of that word, on a garden enclosed, hortus conclusus, that's where the Vulgate takes it. A fountain sealed, you know, which is very interesting. So the idea being, and this applies to the soul itself, and John of the Cross develops this idea also, where we belong to the beloved, and all our flowers and scents are for him alone, so we're like a garden that's shut off from everybody else, in that sense of, you know, exclusive intimacy. And the fountain sealed is the same idea. The only intriguing thing is that in the Hebrew it's not a repetition of the same phrase. Gan Nahul is Gal Nahul, which actually, not Gan means garden, but Gal means a stream. So it's kind of, it doesn't go with the garden so much as it goes with the fountain. So a stream sealed, a stream enclosed, a fountain seal. But almost all the translations keep the garden as a repetition there, including the Latin and the Greek. The garden closed, locked. Yeah, right. Okay. And Shilachayik, the beginning, first word of 13, it's translated emissiones in the Vulgate, which is literal. It means something that's sent out. Shalach means to send. So it's kind of a mysterious word. What do you mean? Things you send out, like your messages? They take it to mean, because of what follows, it's a reference to trees, the branches. So your branches, what you emit is what the Vulgate has. Emissiones tue paradisos. Your emissions, your fragrances are like paradise. But pardes, paradise, it's actually the word here, pardes, which is a loan word from Persian, where you get our word paradise, is an orchard. So your branches are an orchard, you know, of pomegranates in this case, with excellent fruits, heavy with fruit, translated here, with excellent fruits.
And I have grove of pomegranates.
You have what?
Grove instead of orchard. And I
Road?
think grove.
Grove, okay, the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's prettier than orchard.
In terms of poetic translation, yes. And then here's you have the list of the various camphor. Here's translated henna. Henna with nard. Nard is actually the word in Hebrew, nard. So henna and spiked nard with carcome. Carcome is crocus in Latin and Greek. And if you know what a crocus is, it comes up in the spring, right? A little yellow flower. And it's actually saffron. So it's saffron. And again, I know this from my work in the liqueur. We use saffron. And saffron, you cooks probably know this. It's very expensive because it's not the leaf, it's the pollen. It's the pollen on the inside of the crocus is what saffron is. It's used for coloring and for so saffron is the right translation. Kana, as you hear it in Hebrew, it means cane, and is calamus in Latin and Greek, which means a reed. It's actually a root. It's not actually a reed, but it's a root, calamus. And then, of course, cinnamon, cinnamon. It's easy enough, right? If you, I know you've probably seen cinnamon little. It's actually inner bark, which that's why it has that form, like it's just been peeled off a twig. If you've ever seen whole cinnamon instead of ground cinnamon, then you know that. So with all the trees of, again, frankincense, Libanon, frankincense, myrrh, myrrh and aloes, again, it's almost the same word even in Hebrew, aloes, and all the finest spices.
I had sweet cane and cinnamon.
Cane, yeah, sweet cane.
Is that like
Calamus
sugar
is-
cane?
No, it's not sugar cane. No,
It's not in that part of the world.
it's as I say, it's actually a root. It's actually a rhizome.
What is myrrh mean? Myrrh and aloe.
Myrrh is there, yes. Myrrh and aloes at the next to last.
Yeah.
Myrrh.
What does that mean, myrrh?
Well, as I said, myrrh is a preservative that's used also associated in the ancient world with spices that you anoint the dead bodies with. So it's taken to mean, in the tradition, mortification and overcoming of self. And aloes.
That's what one of the three kings brought.
Yes, gold. We have frankincense and myrrh again here, as we did a few moments ago. Okay. And here, and to conclude again that theme, you are a fountain of the gardens. You are a fountain of the gardens, and a well of living waters. So a well of flowing waters, which makes no sense. There can't be a well of flowing water.
No, because the other water.
But it says it which flow from Lebanon. Nozzle is a nozzle. Nozzle, we get the word nozzle, I think, in English from this Hebrew word, flowing. Nozzle. Nuzzling, flowing from Lebanon. So, of course, Gregory of Nyssa and others make a big deal out of being this well of living water. You have both the depth of the well and the flowing of the Spirit, the water flowing up to eternal life. So, it's paradoxical, but those who are spiritually mature have the depth of a well, the stability of a well, but at the same time the vitality of a spring. So a well of living water.
But couldn't it have been like, like living water, like a mikvah? Like it's sort of a pool of water, but it has to be flowing water.
Well, that would have to be a construct though, right? I mean, it doesn't occur naturally.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
But I know what you mean. You have a mikvah. Yeah.
It has to be running water.
Running
it can't
water,
be
yeah.
Stagnant water.
One word, depth of a well. The depth means
Depth.
The depth, deep.
Yeah. Yes,
Okay.
deep. Yeah. Here's what Gregory of Nyssa has to say about this. It's a lovely passage. All through the scriptures, the divine nature is described to us as living water. Jeremiah, for instance, says in chapter 2, "They've turned away from me who am the source of living water." And it goes on to say the broken cisterns. And our Lord, speaking to the woman of Samaria, "If you knew who he is that says to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked of him, and he would have given you living water." And again, John chapter 7, Jesus says, "He who believes in me," as scripture says, "rivers of living water shall spring from his bosom." He was speaking of the Spirit whom those that believed should receive. That's what it says in the Gospel of John. Now in the Canticle, it testifies that the bride is a well of living water whose course streams down from Lebanon. Could there be any greater paradox than this? It is in the nature of all wells to contain still water, while the bride alone possesses within herself a water that flows. Thus she combines the depth of a well with the ever-renewed life of a river. What words could there be to express this wonder worthily? It seems that the bride can raise herself no higher, like as she is in every detail to the primordial beauty of God who is living water. Her fountain, her life, her water are the perfect copy of the fountain, the life, and the water of God. Living is the word of God. Living also the soul that has received the word. That life, the capital L, is a water coming from God. By the testimony of the source that communicates the life, I have come out from God, and I have come. John 8. The bride collects this water in the well of her soul, and she becomes a reservoir of that living water that flows, or rather streams, from Lebanon. So that's what he has to say about it.
What does it mean to be spiritually mature?
Spiritually mature. What do you think it means?
I don't know, I haven't, that's why I'm
Well,
asking.
let's just stick with what he says. It means always allowing this flow of water into you and in through you and from you. That's what it means to be spiritually mature. Because that's resembling, as he just says, that's what it means to resemble God, whose living water is always flowing into the world. Good. Well, we're almost finished. Wow, we're really early today. One more verse, and this again has a history. Let me get that and sing that last verse. Okay, it's here somewhere. Let's see. Surge aquilo et veni auster per flotum meum et fluent aromata ilium. That's that last verse. It's an antiphon from the Office of Virgins. And the translation is, awake, be roused up, surge, north wind, aquilo in Latin, it means the north wind, sappho in Hebrew, and come, veni, auster is the Australia, that's Latin for south, teman in Hebrew. So, awake north wind, come south wind, breathe on my garden, and the spices will flow. Fluent aromata ilius, the spices will flow. So just that part so far. The spices will flow. Interestingly enough, it's clear in the Hebrew and in most of the English translations, I think. Breathe over my garden, but that they're both these winds are being evoked, like the spirit to come and breathe over the soul, so that the fruit, the fragrance of the virtues may flow out. It's positive, but generally, Bernard and others in the Latin tradition take it adversatively. Be aroused, north wind, and get out of here. Come, south wind, and come into here. Because north was taken to be a symbol of cold and the devil. Often in patristic literature, the north region, and it appears a little bit in Isaiah too, is where Babylon comes from. That's the region of the devil and of the cold, of vice and spiritual being frozen, whereas the south wind blowing from the warmth of the spirit. So they took it adversatively, which doesn't seem to be the sense of the Hebrew. The Hebrew is saying, "Come, every wind, and blow over my garden," but they took it to mean north wind to get out of here, south wind come into here, so that we can get the fragrance of the bride's virtues. My garden, the garden of the beloved. And chapter 5 starts with the bridegroom coming into the garden, and we'll see that next week. So, any further comments or questions?
Thank you, Father.
So it's not too tedious. Yeah, it's wonderful stuff, of course. Yeah, in itself, it's fabulous. Yeah, it's good to see how it's been used in our liturgy and in our tradition. and how it applies. So we're halfway through. Next week, hope you can still make it. We're getting that's the 20th. It's just before Christmas. Maybe you'll be out in Macy's instead of here. I hope not. You know. So okay. Well, then no other comments. So thank you, and we'll catch up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.